Welcome to the Service Game, where serve starts the story. I'm your host, Ivy J. And in today's episode, I will be talking about the tennis that took place over the past week, despite the chaos of the world. So, the reason why I titled this week's episode Tennis Amidst Chaos is because it's just there's so much going on in the world right now, and the places that tennis happened to take place this week coincided with them, and I feel like this is a topic that I don't want to go too deep into in today's episode just because I feel like I can't do it justice. However, I do want to maybe write about this as a potential second serve episode, which is should tennis still be going on, and it could be jeopardizing the players' safety and the tournament and even the audience safety because of what's going on in the world. So yeah, I'm not going to get too deep into that, but I will be talking about the tennis that took place and just how it sort of affected the players. So first, I feel like let's talk about a lighter topic, and let's get right into our first segment, which is the toss. Welcome to the toss. So this is our first segment of today's show, which sort of recaps the biggest news event that took place in the tennis world. So I kind of want to talk about Emma Raducanu stepping away from her Nike partnership and partnering with the Japanese brand Uniqlo. As someone who shops at Uniqlo and Nike, honestly, I feel like this is a really interesting move just because Nike is known for their sports clothing, athletic clothing, whereas Uniqlo, I feel like focuses more on, like, I haven't heard that much about their athletic clothing compared to Nike. But it's really interesting because her new deal with the Japanese brand sees her salary reportedly rising from 100K with Nike to 3.5 million, which is a huge pay raise and honestly good for her. I mean, who wouldn't want to get more money at this point? But it's just really interesting because I feel like because Nike has so many amazing players under their brand, it's really hard for them to pay attention to all of them and give them, like, they will just be wearing the same kits, and that could be a problem. I think I mentioned this a few episodes ago of just like players looking completely the same because they're wearing the same fit on a court, and you just get kind of confused, especially if you're just starting to watch tennis. And I think this is a really good opportunity for Emma Raducanu to sort of, obviously she's getting a lot of money, but also to just like stand above and sort of present herself as this unique individual, because I know that Kei Nishikori, I believe, is also sponsored by Uniqlo, but I think Emma Raducanu is, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the first female players to be sponsored by Uniqlo. And I think this is really interesting to see what she does with the brand, because honestly, the Nike fits have not been hitting, especially like at Australian Open. The whole Yannick Sinner fit is just bad. And I feel like it's really interesting to see sort of step outside of the whole Nike or Adidas and trying to find something that's more unique out there and also earning more money. So yeah, good for her. But with that, we will be going into our second segment of today's show, which is also our main segment, which is titled The Hit. Welcome back to The Hit. So I think I kind of want to talk about the two men's events that went on this week, and we'll skip the women's events just because I feel like there hasn't been too much that went on, especially with the top seeds, but I feel like there's a lot that went on the men's side. So I think I first want to talk about the Mexican Open that took place in Acapulco. So as you guys know, over the past week, the famous drug leader, the most wanted person in Mexico, was captured. And despite this, tennis was still going on, and it's just really, I don't know, like, I don't want to say too much about this because I feel like obviously tournaments need to promise their fans, but also it's sort of like jeopardizing the safety of the fans and the players just because of there's such a big thing that's going on in the world right now, in that part of the world right now. But let's just talk about the tennis. So I think want to talk about Alexander Zverev versus Miomir Kecmanovic. So this was really interesting to me. I feel like during this period of the year, Zverev just hasn't been doing well. I remember last year he competed in the clays tournament that happened, but this year he decided to play in Acapulco, which is a slow hard court outdoor hard court event. And I mean, I just feel like because Zverev is so reliant on his serve, and especially because I feel like in Australia, we can clearly see him taking more risks using his serve as his main weapon and coming up to the net, that without the speed of his serve that maybe will be sort of like enhanced on a faster court, it's really hard for him to have a main weapon when it's these slow hard courts, which I feel like kind of translates to why he doesn't have really good results, for example, in Mexico and also in Indian Wells, which is the upcoming tournament in Miami. But yeah, I think it's a really tough loss for Zverev just because going into Indian Wells and Miami, the two back-to-back 1,000 events, he hasn't played a lot of matches. He only played like 2 matches. He won the first one and lost this one against Miomir Kecmanovic. And prior to that, the last time he played was in Australia. So he's sort of lacking a lot of practice coming in to the Golden Swing. But yeah, however, I do not want to take credit away from Miomir Kecmanovic because I feel like he is a really talented player. I remember in this game there was one backhand shot he hit which completely caught Zverev off guard, and I think he is a really talented player, but I do find that sometimes he cannot maintain his high level, and I think there's a dramatic difference between his top level and just his floor and ceiling. So yeah. But and then I kind of want to talk about this interesting sort of thing that happened, which is Terrace Atman's default. So I think this was a match he played against Kecmanovic in the quarterfinals, and he was clearly struggling with injury throughout this match, and this was on Kecmanovic's match point where he was clutching his hamstrings or whatever while he was dealing with an injury, and the umpire just gave him a second warning. So in tennis, the first warning is just a verbal warning. The second warning, your opponent gets a point. The third warning, your opponents get a game. And the fourth warning, you automatically award the opponent the whole match. And it was really unfortunate because the umpire gave him his second warning on his opponent's match point, which meant that he automatically lost the match. So this was just, I feel like really not, I mean, the umpire is clearly just doing his job, but at the same time, he was struggling with injury. So I don't know what the umpire could have really done here. I think, in my opinion, if I were the umpire, I would just honestly let them play out the last point, just because throughout this match we can tell that Ant-Man was struggling. However, I know that I'm not the umpire, so I don't know. It's just like really interesting to it just happened, and I was like, okay, that's so tennis, because yeah, tennis is just really wacky sometimes. But yeah, okay. And then I want to talk about this semifinal, which I actually really enjoyed. The two semifinals I both enjoyed. This first one was between Francis Tiafoe and Brandon Nakashima. I mean, okay, the drama in this, because the net cord really wanted Tiafoe to win. The net cord saved Tiafoe like twice, especially in the second set where it was like in the tiebreak, and to lose that for Nakashima was pretty devastating. But I think that just shows that in the third set, I think Nakashima was clearly affected by that, and I feel like you can kind of call it a choke because I think he had this match on his racket, but ever since the net court happened, I felt that he was a little bit just affected mentally. But yeah, like it was an interesting match. The first set was a little bit boring, not gonna lie, but then as the match progressed, I really liked the drama. And then the second semifinal match between Kecmanovic and um Cabali, Flavio Cabali, was a great match. I really enjoyed this match. Please go check out the highlights. I linked everything in my show notes. So this was really interesting. And for those of you guys who are new to tennis, it kind of just shows the beauty of the tennis scoring system because Cabali won, even though Kecmanovic, I feel like, was the better player. So Cabali won 92 points in total, whereas Miomir Kecmanovic won 99 points. So despite winning less points, he still managed to win this match, which I think is one of the beauty in tennis. It just meant that he won all the important points to win. And I think, yeah, that's something that I will be talking about in my second serve episodes, a little tease about just how a player can still win a match without winning the most points. And I think that's sort of the beauty of the tennis scoring system. So yeah, and he also won 4 games in a row in the third, despite being down 0-3 for Cabali. So it just really shows how, despite I feel like his season hasn't been that, he hasn't had a great start to the season. In Australia, he was clearly ill, but he definitely is coming back stronger. And in the final, he played against Tiafoe. He did manage to get his first title of the season, which I'm really happy for him. Okay, we'll take a little break and we'll come back to the Dubai Open. Okay, hi everyone, welcome back. Let's talk Dubai. So I think there isn't that much to cover, but I kind of want to talk about just the whole situation in Iran and how that is affecting the players who are competing in Dubai. So all flights are canceled until further notice, and that's a really bad situations for players who are competing in Dubai right now because in the next week there are the Golden Swing tournaments, which is Indian Wells and Miami, and it's 2 super important tournaments. And the reason why all flights are canceled is because missiles are firing over Dubai from Iran to the US missile bases. So it's just a little bit of a problem because players like Daniil Medvedev, who made it to the final, I think is still stranded there. But there was a statement that was put out by the Dubai tournament organizers, and quote, following the conclusion of the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships on Saturday, 28th of February, tournament organizers have extended the hosted accommodation protocols for all ATP officials, players, and support staff by an additional 3 days. So that is good. However, I think it's just really tough. I know the men's final, the singles finals, didn't go on because of a withdrawal, not because of the whole situation, but the men's doubles finals did happen. But let's talk about why the men's singles finals didn't happen. So it was going to be between Daniil Medvedev and Talonspor Griekspoor. But Griekspoor withdrew due to a hamstring injury that he suffered against Rublev in the semifinals. So yeah, Medvedev won this title via a withdrawal, and his win meant that for the first time in his career, he has won a tournament more than once, despite this being his 23rd title, which is really intriguing because he's won 23rd titles, and it's crazy how he hasn't repeated that. And I feel like that's something that's not common at all, and for him to break that record, it has to be through a withdrawal. Is just really interesting. But I also kind of want to comment on Jiri Lehechka against FAA because I feel like Felix Auger-Aliassime has been playing fantastic tennis recently. Despite losing to Medvedev in the semifinals, he has won so many he's won one indoor hardcourt title in, I think this was like a month ago, and against Alex de Minaur in ATP Rotterdam in a final, we can clearly see that he was unwell and he wasn't performing at his best. But I really do think he's playing some of his best tennis right now. It's a shame that in Australia he had to withdraw, but I have high expectations for him in Indian Wells and Miami, and I really hope that he puts himself back in the circle of players that we talk about a lot when it comes to Grand Slams. But yeah, I feel like not that much has happened. Everything's like the tournament in Dubai and in Mexico as well has just been overshadowed by all the news. And yeah, but for my follow through, this is just really brief, which is our last segment. The Indian Wells tournament's coming up March 4th. Really, really excited for the Golden Swing. I mean, just the prospect of having two back-to-back men's and women's 1,000 tournaments, I just can't wait for it. I think this is like the closest thing that we get to a 5th Grand Slam. So I'm really, really happy, and I just hope that the tennis will deliver like it always will. Okay, thank you so much for listening. Also, I do want to mention that my first Second Serve episode will be coming out next week. I think by the time you guys listen to this is Monday. My episode might come out the Monday after that, or maybe Saturday or Sunday. So please go follow my Substack, do all you need to do, because my Second Serve posts are going to be a written format and it's going to be longer. So I'm really excited for that. The first Second Serve episode will be about the tennis scoring system. So if you guys are interested, please go subscribe to my Substack. Also, subscribe, follow, share wherever you're listening. Rate my show. It really helps a lot. Comment or DM me ideas for any Second Serve episodes. And also, as something I want to talk about, please comment down below your favorite brand of tennis wear. If you play tennis, what's your go-to brand that you wear when you're playing tennis? Because I don't know, I think the whole Uniqlo situation has just been really interesting, and to see players sort of diverge from the usual tennis brands, quote unquote. So yeah, I'll talk to you guys next week. Let the serves continue. Bye.